Well, as we ring in the new year, Happy New Year, by the way, Donald Trump just surged massively in the polls. This has been huge. But I do want to talk about that, but I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy in the future of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. I think we are too short sighted as a party, and we need to be thinking about the future. That's what we're going to talk about today. Let's go for it. Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X, Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. Also go to continuefreedom.com, sign up for my mailing list. It'll really help me out in the future. So this is huge. From the post-millennial, breaking, President Trump dominates in the first poll of 2024, leads in Hispanics and youth voters. So the first poll of 2024 shows Trump winning the Hispanic and youth vote in the new USA Today and Suffolk poll. And Trump leads among Hispanics by 5 points, 39 to 34. He's up among young voters, which is 37 to 34, and 17% support an unnamed third-party candidate. Overall, Trump leads Biden 34. I just clicked off of it. Leads Biden 39 to 37 and 37 to 34 when RFK Jr. is named as the third candidate. So this is awesome. I mean, Trump's obviously making huge headway, and the guy's like Teflon. The more they come after him, the better he seems to do in the polling. And I think that people are obviously frustrated with where our economy is, where our border is, where the security is. As Greg Abbott is shipping all these people into these urban areas and they're shipping people into the big cities, people are getting frustrated with the spikes in crime, with the homelessness, with the people on their streets. And you know, that obviously there's going to be a very vitriolic response to that, and it's showing up in the polls. And that's beneficial for us as a country. It's beneficial for us as a Republican Party. But I want to talk about something in addition to this. Donald Trump needs to be the 2024 candidate. He absolutely does. He needs to get some vindication for the 8 years of hell that he has had to go through. And you know, we understand that this is all a response to somebody like Trump, who's outside the mainstream, gaining headway starting in 2016 and then carrying through to 2020. And 2016 was a surprise to them. And the only response that they had to it was, okay, we've got to impeach the guy. We've got to try to get him on criminal charges. We've got to go after him with the full weight of the deep state and try to ruin this guy, because how dare the American people elect somebody that wasn't part of our selection process? And then in 2020, they realized that they couldn't do anything about it. So what did they do? They just steal the election. And we have all the records of massive voter spikes overnight. And there's still people that will, you know, try to shy away from it. They don't want to sound conspiratorial. But we've seen enough evidence that the 2020 election was obviously stolen. And they have there's the possibility that this is going to happen again in 2024. But their goal is to simply crush Donald Trump and scare away any potential outsiders that could come along after him. And there is one outsider who really the only other outsider in the entire race, and that's Vivek Ramaswamy. And so Vivek, however, is sitting at 3.5%, roughly 3.5% in the polls. And it depends on where you go, like any other poll. But this one is from Project 538. And Project 538 has him sitting at 3.5%, right above Chris Christie, of all people. And Chris Christie, I mean, the only place he ever shows up is CNN and MSNBC. I mean, he'll show up on those places, but he's polling at 3.5%. Meanwhile, Vivek Ramaswamy is sitting on every long-form podcast, getting millions and millions and millions of eyeballs. And my thought is that obviously the pollsters are not talking to the people that are looking at those podcasts, because if they were, they would find that he is much higher, I would venture to say, in the polls than it's showing there in that particular one. But we have to ask ourselves as a party, and you know, we're kind of bifurcated as a party because we've got conservatives and, you know, we've got the big R Republicans. So the unipartians, those people are going to vote for Nikki Haley. They're going to, if given the option, they would vote for Nikki Haley. They're going to vote for anybody that the party tells them to vote for. And I don't want to say those folks are lost causes, because they're not. They just need to be woken up. They need to be informed about what's going on in the deep state, because they aren't necessarily thinking about it on a day-to-day basis. Well, people in the conservative movement are much more vocal. They are much more tapped in. And so they understand the deep state. They understand the establishment, and they understand what we are up against. That we'll have people like the Secretary of State in Maine who will just strip a president. This lady, she'll just strip a president off of the ballot. That's what we're up against. And a lot of people, I don't think, even understand that they will go to great lengths that are far beyond the Constitution, far beyond their rights and abilities, and they will make unilateral decisions to try to prevent us from electing the person that we want. But going back to Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump and all this, we have to ask ourselves, who do we want as our president? You see, we've got tough decisions to make this year. If Donald Trump goes to prison, we could have some very, very tough decisions to make. We could be put in a very difficult situation as Republicans, as conservatives, if Donald Trump is put in prison. Do I think he will be? No, but I most definitely think they're going to continue this fight all the way through to the election. They will do whatever they can to try to prevent him from running. And if that happens, if Donald Trump is not able to be in the presidential race, we are faced with Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Vivek Ramaswamy. And yes, people say that Vivek Ramaswamy is like a younger version of a Trump, and he, in a lot of ways, is, in so much as he is not bought and paid for as Nikki Haley is and as Ron DeSantis is. And so we have to say, what do we want? Do we want somebody who is, do we want somebody who is bought and paid for by the establishment, or do we want an outsider, a self-funded person who's relying on their own accumulated wealth, which Vivek Ramaswamy is worth somewhere between $950 and $1 billion. At that point, he's a billionaire. Let's just call him $1 billion. Do we want that guy, or do we want somebody who is in the pocket of BlackRock, like Nikki Haley, in the pocket of the military-industrial complex, like Nikki Haley? Or do we want somebody who has massive super PACs behind him, like Ron DeSantis? Now, granted, some of those super PACs are starting to pull back because his campaign is atrocious. But if you look at the polling, you would think that he and Nikki Haley are on par with one another. And let's say that Donald Trump does make it to the election, does make it to November, and we're able to get him into office, which by every stretch of the imagination, Donald Trump would beat Joe Biden, unless we see some more 2020 tomfoolery, in which case they could most definitely steal another election. If that happens, we've got a whole other set of issues. But as a party, we look too often, far too often, at the next election cycle, and we ignore what comes after that. We have to realize that we're at a time in our history where momentum for conservatism has to be our number one priority. Is Donald Trump a true conservative? No, Donald Trump's not a conservative. Donald Trump is an old school. I mean, you could almost call him a conservative Democrat, but he's a Republican, and his only difference is that he understands the deep state and wants to get rid of it, whereas the Republican Party is perfectly happy with the deep state staying in place. But after Donald Trump gets in, he starts chipping away at the swamp, because he told us he was going to drain it and he wasn't able to. I think it was a more massive undertaking than he originally thought. But if he gets in a second term, he has nothing to lose, and he can start chipping away at the deep state. He can start chipping away or start draining the swamp. We have to have somebody that comes after that to pick up the mantle, to continue to dismantle the surveillance state, dismantle the deep state, dismantle this long-standing bureaucracy that operates behind the curtain, behind closed doors, and removes our rights, removes our liberties and our freedoms, and they continue to move us closer to totalitarianism than they do towards conservatism or towards freedom and liberty. And some people, I've been watching online, and a lot of people say that it's already lost, that we're only under the facade or under the illusion of having choice and being in a free and open society. In a constitutional representative republic. That's what we think that we have, but in reality, we don't. But all these things can change. And so I ask you, do you prefer self-funded? Do you prefer someone out of the establishment, someone who's a fighter, someone who's driven by the Constitution, someone who understands that deep state, who believes in the First Amendment, believes in the Second Amendment, and yes, somebody who's pro-life? Or do you prefer somebody that has the big donors, that has that's BlackRock funded or military-industrial complex funded or war-hungry and is willing to compromise? Because our compromise, people say, it sounds great. This is all bipartisan. Yeah, bipartisan simply means the uniparty agreed on it, and therefore it will happen. And the uniparty has shifted our country, our politics, our society, everything has shifted to the left. And they've done that because the left plays the long game. The left plays the long game in that they control, as Marx told them to do, they control our educational systems. They control the media. They control all the bureaucracy that sits behind our government. The people that you would never know. If you were walking down the street, you wouldn't realize that these people are part of this nefarious organization that is stripping our liberty, stripping our rights, robbing our children, robbing future generations of their wealth, and putting everybody born today being put into $100,000 in debt. Do we want the person who's outside of that or the person who sits softly inside of it, comfortably inside of it? Because we have the facade as well in the mainstream media where we watch a CNN interview of Nikki Haley or of Chris Christie. If Chris Christie on CNN, it's more like a Democrat being interviewed than it is a Republican. But you watch these people on the mainstream media outlets, and they give them a little pushback, but it's just enough pushback to make you think that these people are on our side, to make you think that these people are conservative or that they're Republican, when in fact these people who are beholden to their donors are unipartians. And they are going to, they know these people have favors that are owed. And as soon as they get into office, those IOUs are going to come out and they're going to have to compromise. And those are the compromises that take us to the left and not to the right. And the wild thing about the polling is that I use a program that tells me, what people are searching, what people are talking about, the hot topics and all those things for the day. And you know who consistently shows up in that list is Vivek Ramaswamy. You know who doesn't show up in that list? Chris Christie or Ron DeSantis. Those people don't show up in the list at all. People aren't talking about them. People aren't fired up about them. The comment sections are chock full of Vivek 2024 comments. He has a motivated base. And yet we are expected to believe it's only 3.5%, and I have a very, very hard time believing that. Almost as much as I believe the polls that told us that Hillary Clinton was going to have a runaway campaign in 2016. And you can look here in New Hampshire. The CNN, by the way, is running the upcoming debates and the town halls and all of these things. And CNN has put out their criteria for anyone to take part in their debates. And I find it interesting that CNN says they have to, I just lost it. CNN has told us that there's very specific requirements for someone to take part in it. And to qualify in the Iowa debates, candidates must receive at least 10% in 3 separate national and or Iowa polls of Republican caucus goers or primary voters that meet CNN's standards for reporting, according to the network. One of the 3 polls must be approved CNN poll of likely Iowa Republican caucus goers. So basically, they have to be approved polls from CNN or CNN polls themselves that would get you into the Iowa debates. And what are we expected to believe? That CNN polls, first off, are accurate, that CNN polls or any of the ones that they may choose are going to give us an actual picture of what the voters believe? Or can we see for ourselves by looking at public discourse online? We go to the actual public square, go to X. Who are people motivated about? People are not motivated about Ron DeSantis. People are not motivated about Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley exists because the Republican Party says that she does. They say that she is their backup plan. If their nefarious plans go through, all those Republicans working with the Democrats behind closed doors and hoping that Donald Trump does not make it to the White House, does not make it to the ballot in 2024, they know that Nikki Haley is the person that they are going to pump hundreds of millions of dollars they're going to pump it into her campaign because you know what? Democrats may kick and scream and say that, oh, no, the Republicans, we got to get them in the next election, all that. The truth is that if Nikki Haley gets elected, the temperature in public discourse will come down. In the media, it will come down. They will give us the cursory, attacks on Republicans. But in the end, if Nikki Haley is elected, the Democrats get what they want. The Democrats get what they want because Nikki Haley is going to give them the war that they want, the war that's going to distract us while they are passing legislation that's robbing our children of their wealth, of their future wealth, that's devaluing all of our retirement accounts. And Nikki Haley doesn't have any qualms about it.
To say,
this is Nikki Haley talking about the war in Ukraine, which is obviously the place that we've spent $200 billion there, and of course she believes we need to spend more. But let's listen to Nikki Haley tell us straight from the horse's mouth
whether he believes Russia should win the war or if Putin is a war criminal. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis referred to Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a, quote, territorial dispute. What do you think of that?
I think that that's a mistake that too many have made. That's exactly what got the Europeans in this position with Russia in the first place, is that they're too trustful. You can't be trustful of a regime that goes in and tries to take away people's freedoms. What we need to understand is that Ukraine has the ability to win, but we have to think bigger than that. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
And there you go. This is coming straight from not her, but this is coming from the people who are trying to get her elected, are the people who are buying the bombs and buying the bullets and buying the tanks and the APCs and all the stuff that we're sending. And this bodes well for them. Because if Ukraine is going to be fighting Russia, Ukraine needs weapons, and they're going to use U.S. dollars to pump it back into these companies, and that $200 billion is going to help improve the bottom line for those defense contractors. And she says, in her own words, that we can't support a dictator who is destroying freedom. And I'm paraphrasing. You heard what she just said. You mean like the dictator in Ukraine who is going after the churches, who's going after independent media, who's going after his political opponents, his dissenters? She is doing the same thing that the Democrats are doing. They are pitching Ukraine as some paragon of democracy and freedom and liberty, and it is not so. We are pumping billions, hundreds of billions of dollars into a country that is run by a little dictator who is saying that who said he's going to halt elections unless America gives him more money to fight this war. And you know what Russia is really caring about? They're caring about the Russian-speaking parts of the country. So this is what we're up against. If Nikki Haley is elected, Nikki Haley will most definitely bring down the temperature in this country. But it won't be Nikki Haley doing it. It will be the uniparty agreeing that, yes, we now have one of our people in. Yeah, she's got an R after her name. But at the end of the day, it's no different. And we as a party, we as conservatives, or no, I won't say conservatives, as the Republican Party, or Republican Party members, let's just say that, Republican citizens, they're falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. And they're saying, well, we need to go back to, more professional people. We need to go back to people that are more soft-spoken and more professional, as if Vivek Ramaswamy is not, which he most definitely is. He is everything from the guy who's leading in the polls right now, Donald Trump. He's everything that Donald Trump is, and then some. Because if you remember back to 2016 and even into 2020, Donald Trump was not specific about his policy prescriptions. Donald Trump said, I'm going to drain the swamp. We never said how he was going to do it. Vivek Ramaswamy says, I'm going to dismantle 75% of the executive branch, which is under his purview. And he has said, this is exactly how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to bypass all those laws that prevent people from firing federal employees. He's told us exactly how he's going to do it. We never got such things from Donald Trump. That doesn't mean Donald Trump wasn't going to do it. But why would the rest of the party not say, oh, you know what? That's awesome, because then this would be a 12-year. If Donald Trump is elected, that's 12 years of Donald Trump. Except after Donald Trump, we don't have the mean tweets, right? Which seems to bother a lot of people, apparently. I mean, I personally enjoy them. I like the late-night tweets now. I didn't like them at first, but they grew on me. And we've got a guy who's not going to embroil us in long-term conflict. Nikki Haley is of the same ilk as George Bush. If you don't think that Nikki Haley getting whispers in her ear from Lockheed and from the military-industrial complex and from people in the Defense Department, that there are other places that we need to attack, that there's other places that we need to be bombing. Nikki Haley herself has said that we need to be bombing Iran to prevent them from developing nuclear weapons. We need to bomb Iran. We have to hit their depots. She's of the same ilk as Lindsey Graham, who said that we know where the Republican Guard are out in the open. We need to be bombing them. We need to wipe them off the face of the earth. This is what these people are saying. They are drawing us into another conflict because the establishment wins when we are in conflict. Their donors get money, and the American people are distracted. And the America's sons and daughters, the men and women in the armed services, they're going to go, and they will go with a smile on their face, and they will fight whoever they have to fight because that's what they do, and they do it well. But we are going to sacrifice more blood and treasure under people like Nikki Haley. Vivek Ramaswamy is the exact opposite. Excuse me. He says we need to leverage our economic position in this world. We need to stop our reliance on China. And we need to bring manufacturing back here. We need to build up our nation. We need to build up our defenses are spread so thin across the globe. And someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, someone like Donald Trump, who started no new wars, you cannot tell me that this does not bode well for us over the long term. And yet people still say, no. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's too perfect. These are comments, by the way, that I've gotten off of social media. He's too perfect. He seems too prepared. He's too polished. Were we duped so bad by Barack Obama that now when we finally have somebody who is a version of Donald Trump that is succinct, that is measured, that is specific, and that doesn't send mean tweets but only sends perfectly lucid communications over the internet, that we are now afraid of that person? Our psyche has been messed up so bad by people like Barack Obama because that was, excuse me, that was the chief argument against Barack Obama, was that, oh, he's so eloquent and he's such a unifier and he's going to do all these things. And he came into office and did the exact opposite. Do we think that that is the future of Vivek Ramaswamy? That all of a sudden he's going to get into office and turn into Barack Obama 2.0, even though he has the exact opposite policy prescriptions for addressing the issues in this country? It's mind-numbing to me, to be perfectly honest. It's absolutely mind-numbing to me. And here's the other thing. Part of his policy prescriptions are drawing a younger generation back to the founding of this country, back to the Constitution and our Bill of Rights, back to the things that made us great to begin with. And I'll be perfectly honest, Donald Trump does not necessarily fall inside of those lines. Donald Trump is awesome in that he is a fighter, he's a scrapper. He's tough, and he's shown his toughness in 8 years of fighting these absolutely horrific charges against him and unrelenting attacks from the deep state and from the establishment. But Vivek Ramaswamy shows the same things, except he does so eloquently. And he's talking about the unity. It's not just about the fight to end wokeness and to end all the things going on in our society, but it's telling the younger generation that there's something better for you. How is that not an inspiring message to people? It is to me. So this is why I think the future of our party will be someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, if not him. I would hope it would be him. But we as the voters, we have to realize that the things we're being force-fed are not always the right thing. Look at a Vivek Ramaswamy when he's on CNN, and I can show you a quick clip here of Vivek Ramaswamy on CNN at the CNN town hall. This is how they respond to him when he's trying to answer a question.
You know, people were FBI informants, so we're asking.
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this, and then you can come back and question me?
Well, let me clarify.
I know this is very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is uncomfortable for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told you, I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot?
So let's do this.
An inside job.
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is, because I'm not
violence on January.
And it's just painful to watch, but she doesn't let him answer the question. She asks a question, and she keeps interrupting. She acts more like an activist than she does a moderator. She acts more like an activist than she does an actual journalist. She is here shilling for another party. And that's the type of conflict that he's up every time he's talking with the media. Whereas Donald Trump experienced the same thing. Nikki Haley, not so much. So to kind of wrap this up for everybody, my hope is that we will think more about the future, that we'll think about what's best for the conservative movement. That's, think about where we want to be, not just in a year when Donald Trump is elected as president of the United States, but where are we going to be after that? What's the type of leader that we want to take us to the next level, to get our politics to the next level, and to get politicians in Washington, D.C. to start compromising towards conservatism, to start compromising towards the right, and to stop the compromising towards the left. Move us closer to the Constitution. Move us closer to the Bill of Rights. Move us closer to freedom and liberty and away from authoritarianism. That's what we need to be thinking about for the future. So those are my thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. Remember, we're on X, Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. And to close this out, let me ask you a quick question. If you had to pick one of the 4 candidates currently running other than Donald Trump, who would it be? Leave that in your comments below and let me know why. And we'll see you next time.